But do you think though the church today is compromising our standard of holiness to become more relevant? Shane, what do you feel about that?
Yes and no. And when we think about the compromise, there are many churches, there are many groups within the church. Because, you and I and Ian and many of the viewers will know that when we talk about the church, the church is larger than any one organization or one group. We're talking about church universal. The you Greek scholars, the ecclesia and all of these things. But but then when we look on the standards and where the church is at, there's a lot of things that I believe that the church, you find it. And people will say it from time to time that there are many pastors who will compromise holiness just to ensure that they have members, or they will not preach certain things just to appease the membership, especially those who are paying the good tithes, or those who allow the church to look a certain way. And then you'll find that the truth is it happens. And we're not going to pretend like there are not, pockets of groups within the body of Christ that does that. But on a wide scale, I believe that the church itself, the blood-washed, the sanctified church, the church that still believes and maintains holiness to be God's standard of living for his people, right? That the church, that there are those within the church who will unreservedly never compromise holiness. So whether the church is filled, we rather lose the people who decide that they are not staying because of that, than to preach, gospels that will allow them to feel happy and stay. But then when we think about the whole essence of it, Dermaine and Ian, the holiness standard, many people will say that the church is watering down the holiness standard, and some of the things that they will look on to decide that is the fact that, how people dress in church. We don't dress holy. Yeah, the young girls don't dress holy again and all of those things. And, I guess, later on when we talk about the whole dress thing, that's another thing. But on a broad scale, yes, the church to some extent has watered down and has compromised. And I think it goes with the fact that we are in the dispensation of mercy and grace, yes, and sometimes we take God's mercy and grace for granted. And so those things that used to happen back then, where people fall down dead and all of these things, because God has extended grace to us, we take it for granted, and in the eyes of many it will seem that that is the case.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's anything left to say. My good friend is an outstanding orator. What I will say, I'm agreeing with him 100%. Generally speaking, I would say no. The church universal has not given up its stance on holiness, morality, and truth. However, there are some subsects. There are some sections of the church, small pockets as he mentioned, that are operating in compromise. But is that a fair deduction to say that the church is compromising? Oh my, no man. The church is still making a stand in the earth that holiness before God is right.
So pretty much you are both saying that though we will recognize in some churches where holiness is compromised, the general church itself and for what the church stands for, it's still resolute and holding on to holiness as a standard of living for people.
Yeah.
So I guess some persons will say that the church is compromising, but I'm really happy that you guys place emphasis on this and to give us a clear understanding, allow our viewers to understand that, because oftentimes our worldview is really as a result of where we are, so we see things from the angle at which we are looking at. So if you are from, say, example, the South Spring New Testament Church of God, you perhaps will have a worldview from that perspective based on how you are cultured and what you are exposed to. And you will say, oh, this is what the church is. But you have to try and change your perspective, try and change your view, and see if you can have a clearer understanding of what the church is, because persons are exposed to YouTube churches, and a lot of the churches that are on the social media sites and so on, persons would say that they are compromising, because you will hear the pastor saying different things and so on. But the truth is, we have to know what the church is and what the church stands for. And I would say, for majority of our traditional churches, you will find that the core of holiness is still preached, and an attempt is made for its practice.
One of the things, Dermaine, and you talked a little bit about it earlier. When we talk about the compromise, there are many persons who are in our churches today, and with no disrespect to our senior persons or elders, as we would call them, the mothers and fathers in Zion, who have paved the way to allow many of us younger persons to have a path to follow. We really respect and cherish the value that they have placed. But a lot of these persons who are in church still fail to recognize that there is a whole lot of transition that has taken place over the years. That there are certain things that happened back then. Because back in the day, somebody did something in church, there was no hard and fast rule. Your name crossed out of the book, and you're on a back bench for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and whatever the case may be. Or in some churches, they would let you sit down at the front or do all kind of things. You would still have to be present at Sunday morning service, Bible study, because it was a part of the quote-unquote punishment. Yes, you still have to come to everything church is having.
Or I call it the quote-unquote restoration.
Or a part of the restoration process. Thanks. You still have to participate in everything while you are still not doing anything, and that would be put you in a position where you understand the importance of holiness and reverence. But in today's church, a member does something. There's a more interactive approach that is taken, where there is dialogue that goes into, the whole restoration process. And while there may be some level of penalties I may use that goes with it, we are not putting people at backbench. We'll say, boy, brother Ian, what you did was wrong, and so on, and we find other ways to restore such a one. And then you find that the people who are from old church will say, no man, pastor, they compromise, man, because if I were in my day, you gonna backbench. So a lot, because we have come a far way, and you mentioned in terms of, we've been exposed to education and a lot of other things. It has allowed us to recognize that there are other ways to deal with certain issues that arise in the church. And those who are possibly one-sided or very deeply traditional fail to open their minds to see the other sides and the other perspectives that they have.
Yeah, well said. Well said, and I really appreciate that. And I don't think that there's anything else that we can say on that. I really think that Reverend Gillette did a wonderful job a while ago.